Good afternoon. My name is Sara. I'm a researcher at Refsum Center for Interdisciplinary Study of Rhythm, Time and Motion at University of Oslo. This talk is about functional near-infrared spectroscopy responses of professional violinists during orchestra performances. Concert performances are said to be unique for their nuanced interpretations and levels of immersion in music, but also physically and mentally stressful for musicians. The cognitive and physical demands of concert performances can affect musicians' body motion and their cardiorespiratory activity. Recent investigations suggest that leader and follower roles may impose particular demands on certain neural areas. More specifically, leadership may influence areas involved in planning and executive functioning, such as the frontal region, in the social information processing, such as the sensory motor areas, and in the motor simulation processing, such as the temporal parietal region. However, how musicians' brain activation varies during orchestra performances has not been fully understood yet. This study analyzed the neural correlates of music performances and addresses two specific research questions. How does brain activation change across concerts and pieces? We hypothesize that brain activation is consistent across concerts when performing the same musical material, as we expect that the pieces to impose consistent demands across concerts. We also hypothesize that brain activation changes depending on the piece performed, as pieces might require varying musical, social, and cognitive demands. Then we ask how brain activation changes in relation to the leader-follower roles imposed by their professional roles in the orchestra, as well as those imposed by the musical roles the pieces entail. Based on previous investigations, we hypothesize a higher brain activation in the frontal area when musicians play the leader roles, and in the temporal parietal and somatomotor regions when they play follower roles. To answer these questions, we collaborated with the Stavanger Symphony Orchestra, SSO. This orchestra is one of the best symphony orchestras in Scandinavia. It consists of 85 musicians from 23 different nations and has its concerts in Farteinvallen in Stavanger Concert Hall, which has a capacity of 1,200 people. With SSO, we established a long-lasting collaboration that started back in 2023. So far, we have had 3 research concert series, one in 2023, one in 2024, and one in 2025. Each concert series lasted 1 week and enclosed multiple concerts with about 600 audience members per concert. It also included multiple rehearsals and a dress rehearsal per concert series. The current study focuses on 3 specific concerts: Concert 3, Concert 5, and Concert 7 that took place in 2024. Across the concert series, we collected neurophysiological data, behavioral data, and cognitive data from musicians and also audience members, including pupillometry, body motion using, among others, infrared and GoPro cameras, cardiorespiratory activity, and self-reported concert experiences using surveys and interviews. This study focused on neurodata collected in 2024 from 2 SSO violinists using functional near-infrared spectroscopy hyperscanning technology, commonly referred to as fNIRS. In doing so, we simultaneously measured hemodynamic changes in 2 violinists, violin 1 from the first violin section and violin 2 from the second violin section. Violin 1 was was seated in the first chair of the first violin section. Violin 2 was seated in the last chair of the second violin section. The first violin section often carries the expressive and thematic material, while the second violin section typically provides a rhythmic and harmonic support. The musical repertoire SSO performed during the 2024 concert series remained fixed across multiple concerts and was approximately 50 minutes long. It included a wide range of excerpts from the 18th to the 21st century. The orchestra production team primarily determined the repertoire, from which we selected 5 pieces for the current study due to their length being at least 2 minutes long and their leader-follower roles, making them ideal for studying social information processing and also motor simulation in ensemble playing. The selected repertoire includes the Preludio from La Traviata by Giuseppe Verdi, where violin 1 carries the melodic line and violin 2 provides the accompaniment, thus clearly establishing a leader-follower dynamic. It also features the Largo from Antonio Vivaldi's Concerto for Piccolo, in which both violinists perform accompaniment roles, thus both assuming follower roles. The remaining 3 works by Harald Severud, Samuel Barber, and Gioacchino Rossini present a more balanced interplay, with each violin part alternating between melodic and accompaniment functions, so resulting in more shared and dynamic distribution of leadership. Using fNIRS, we mapped optical changes in the right frontal, temporal, temporoparietal, and sensory motor cortex, utilizing bright fNIRS head caps with a 2x4 channel setup for brain area, with 2 additional short channels allowing continuous measurement of hemodynamic changes in regions of the head above the brain. Continuous oxygenated hemoglobin levels measuring blood flowing to the area were first extracted for each music performance, secondly filtered and averaged for each violinist, piece, and concert and channel, and thirdly normalized based on a 5 seconds baseline recording that was collected before piece's beginning. And this was done to account for inter-individual variability related to scalp thickness, hair density, hemodynamic baseline level, and also instrumental drift. Eventually, the resulting mean hemoglobin levels were entered in a linear mix modeling, testing the fixed effects of concert, channel type, and interactions between aria and violin roll, and interaction between piece and violin roll. Results show that piece was a significant predictor. Using the Verdi piece, Concert 3, Violin 1, and frontal aria as a baseline, we found that oxyhemoglobin activation was higher in the Verdi piece, where violin played the main melody, than the Severud piece, where violin 1 alternated melodic and accompaniment functions. Concert number was also a significant predictor. Oxygenated hemoglobin activation decreased linearly with time across concert events. Interestingly, the violin role defined by the orchestra structures, being violin 1 and violin 2, was also a predictor. Violin 1 showed higher frontal oxyhemoglobin activation than violin 2. Overall, brain area was not a significant predictor of oxyhemoglobin levels. Notably, we found significant interactions between violin role and the piece performed. In violin 2, oxygenated hemoglobin levels within the Severud and Vivaldi piece were higher than the Verdi piece. We also found a significant interaction between brain area and violin role. The temporal and temporoparietal oxygenated hemoglobin levels were higher in violin 2 than violin 1. To summarize, we found that the oxygenated hemoglobin activation was significantly predicted by the interactions between violin, piece, aria, and concerts. In the Verdi piece, where violin 1 plays the main melody, the frontal oxyhemoglobin levels in violin 1 were higher than those found in the Several piece, where violin 1 played mixed leadership role. The frontal oxyhemoglobin activation in violin 1 decreased with time across concerts and was higher in violin 1 playing the leader than violin 2 playing the follower. The temporal and temporoparietal oxyhemoglobin activation was higher in violin 2, typically performing follower roles, than violin 1 performing leader roles typically. The fact that the overall frontal oxygenated hemoglobin activation was higher in violin 1 than violin 2 suggests that this area might reflect the leader roles musicians play. And this is in line with research observing the relevance of the frontal region in leaders. The fact that the frontal oxygenated hemoglobin activation was higher in Verdi, where the first violinist performed the main melody, than in the Sever piece, in which a musician performed a mixed role, suggests that the frontal area activation might reflect a leadership induced by the piece performed. Interestingly, the frontal oxygenated hemoglobin activation in the first violinist decreased linearly over the course of a concert week. This might reflect the tendency for the first violinists to decrease their leadership the more they become familiar with a piece. And this is in line with behavioral studies suggesting body motion coordination during ensemble playing becoming smoother and decreasing with time across performance events. The fact that the oxyhemoglobin levels in the temporal and temporoparietal regions were higher in violin 2 than violin 1 suggests that these areas might reflect follower roles, so corroborating previous empirical investigations in laboratory settings. Future studies with a larger data set of participants are needed to investigate the generalizability of these results. Nevertheless, this study offers an ecologically valid examination of changes in oxygenated hemoglobin levels in the brains of the two violinists across 3 live concert performances. By doing so, it contributes to a deeper understanding of the neural correlates involved in ensemble music making in real-world concert settings. I wish to thank my co-authors, Andreas Løve, Maja Foldal, and Alexander Jensenius, and the Rhythm Bodies in Concert team that supported the data collection in 2024. And thank you all for listening, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.